Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Android, recommend Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. You can also check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel for all the latest in South Florida sports content. We got some news there. 3 Yards Per Carry, which has been podcast only in its first 5 years, is going to start doing video on our YouTube channel as well. That's our popular Dolphins podcast, kind of the equivalent of 5 on the Floor. So make sure that you check that out. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. You can bypass the Apple upcharge. Off the Floor is the place for the most heat, information, and conversation, plus the stage shows and more. Pretty soon, this is where everybody's going to be. If they want to follow heat coverage, that's our plan, and we're going to make good on it. So check it out. Get off of Twitter. We'll put everything from Twitter that's relevant over here. It's Off the Floor. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE, WNBA. Getting interesting heading up towards the All-Star break. Also, MLB heading towards the All-Star break. Plenty that you can play there. Use the code 5, FIVE. You'll still get your $50. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, Ware, here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in 5 Reasons Sports. I got Eternal Bast. You can follow him at Eternal Bast. Check out all recent episodes, including Alex and I arguing about the Jimmy Butler trade and other episodes that we've done on Summer League. Brady and Greg have been handling those in the postgame. But Eternal Bast is here with me, and you can follow him at Eternal Bast. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in 5 Reasons Sports. We're going to look at the totality of Summer League so far as is a pivot to Vegas. So we're going to cover 4 players in particular. Not all of them have played in every game. Some have played well. Some have played not so well. The 2 we're going to start with are 2 who were named to the California Classic starting 5 afterwards. And by the way, there's a 3rd guy who played for the Heat, not this time around. Cole Swider actually made that 5. That's not a player I think the Heat are going to bring back anytime soon. Kel'el Larsson, of course, 2nd-round pick last year, and Keshad Johnson, who we had on the podcast at Media Day. We had them together last year. And Keshad was undrafted last year, but was kind of the primary target for the Heat as an undrafted player. And, of course, they played together at Arizona. Here's the other thing about both of them. They have standard contracts for this season. They are on the roster heading into training camp. Larsson got some chance to play last year, mixed results, but did some good things, particularly defensively. Shot needs work. Or at least that's what was shown during last season. Keshad Johnson really didn't get an opportunity. I thought he'd get more, but they did elevate him from a 2-way to a standard. They like him. I know that. But there just wasn't a chance. And he was kind of playing, I would say, mostly behind Haywood, even though they're slightly different players. Eternal, let's start with Larsson and what we've seen so far and what needs to improve for him to become a rotation staple this season.
I think the first thing, you want to see more consistency in his 3-point shot. I think one of the main things that we've seen him put his head down, get to the basket. We've seen the intensity of his defense, the hustle and everything like that. The shooting percentage hasn't been like super efficient, and he's getting the shots up. I think he may lead the team in shot attempts, but I think what we've seen so far from Kel'el has been encouraging. But if you look at, especially with the Heat's plan to lean young in a way, I think what you have seen from Kel'el through these 3 games, albeit with more games to come in Vegas, I think it's a step in the right direction, right? Especially building off of what you saw from him last Summer League and during the season. It just seems like a steady progression.
We're going to hold most of this for a future podcast, but I feel like we're setting up for a competition in camp between Larsson and Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think that is barring further changes, and Wiggins could be traded, which could open up a starting spot for Jaquez potentially, which I think changes his role. Don't know that he would necessarily be the guy, but he'd be in contention.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen an upside from Jaquez in terms of some of the strong games that he had almost exclusively as a rookie. Second year, hit the wall a little bit. We talked about injuries, stomach problems, scouting, all kinds of different things. But, I mean, there's no way to argue it. He did not have a good second season.
All right.
Larsson is a plug-and-play type player, it strikes me. It has from the beginning. He's just, you put him in with any kind of group, and he's just going to make plays fit, get on the floor. And again, defend it at a very competitive level. Like you said, he likes contact, but he's still going to be left open in a lot of situations.
Oh yeah.
If this was, we're just gonna tease this because I want to move on to Keshad Johnson. We're teasing this, okay? If they were set up with a competition for, say, a 9th spot in the rotation, 9th and final spot, who do you think Spoelstra would lean on? The guy in Jaquez, who we've seen maybe has a little bit higher scoring potential. He showed that as a rookie. Or the guy in Larsson, who, again, you can kind of stick in any lineup, and he's sort of not going to get in the way, but he's going to get some floor burns and defend.
Is this the current roster, or?
I'm talking about 9th man of the rotation. They're both on the roster.
No, I'm saying is this pre or post Wiggins trade is what I'm saying.
I let's say Wiggins is still here. Let's say they don't make dramatic changes. That maybe Rozier's traded, but there's nothing major that's done here. Or maybe they get Lillard, but Lillard's not playing this season most likely. So let's say in that scenario.
Because I think in that context, what they provide is a little different, right? I think Jaquez provides a little bit more playmaking than Pella does, and how they play defense is different between the two, right? And obviously you talked about the scoring and everything like that. So I think it really just depends on what the roster look like, but I'm not going to give you an Alex answer.
Tough question.
If I'm going to give you like a definitive answer as of today, I probably think just versatility purposes, he probably leans Jaime a little bit more, but it really would just be game dependent on what the matchup is. Because I could also see him leaning Pella.
See, I think it would be Larsson, but I think it would be Larsson. But then I could see scenarios where, let's say, Wiggins is out for a night, Jaquez starts,
all right,
and gets more touches on the ball. I feel like if you're talking about fitting in a 9th guy, and some of it does depend on lineup too. Because let's say Powell is starting, and you're bringing Davion off the bench with Jovic, then I could see Jaquez maybe in there to give you a little bit more scoring. But if you're bringing Norm off the bench, which I still think is possible, I think people are downplaying this too much. The man was 6th man of the year, not 6th man of the year, but 4th and 6th man of the year voting 2 straight years. And that's not that long ago. That's the season before this one and the season before that. If they do that, then I think it's more Larsson in that lineup, because I don't think you need potentially what Jaquez could offer as a scorer, again, if he figures it out. But I think we are setting up for this discussion, which we'll have a little bit more as camp starts. Again, if the roster stays somewhat the same. Let's go to another guy, though. Keshad Johnson has hops. We know that. Okay.
Right, of course,
plays with tremendous energy. He's got athleticism. We liked a lot of what we saw of him last year, and then we didn't see him much. Do you think this is the year that he plays, if Haywood is still here, that he plays ahead of Haywood?
Yes, I could see it, because we saw moments last year, stretches really, where Haywood got a lot of DNPs, you know, for weeks, and we talked about that as far as, you know, how he was kind of get blown by guys, whether they were, you know, and getting picked on in certain situations. And also, too, you kind of seen what you have in Haywood. Keshad provides a little different. One of the biggest things for Keshad is his shot, right? Like if he could fix his shot similar to what Haywood did. And from what we've seen so far in the summer league, his shot looks a lot smoother, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look so much like he's shooting with a backpack on. It doesn't look like, a football player playing basketball and pickups. So his shot looks a lot smoother. He looks confident in his shot. Still haven't seen a lot from him on the ball, as far as putting the ball on the floor and making, those type of plays. But I think what you see from him defensively, his hustle, his energy, if there's a turnover, you best believe you to watch out for him on a chase down block or just a contest, right? And those type of things make a difference. So I think you absolutely could see him get some minutes, especially because of where they are right now, right? We talk about the current roster. You still have Andrew, you got Norm, you got Tyler, you got Davion, Jaime, Pella, all that. Where they're weak at is in the front court.
Yeah.
And so if you're playing him as a small ball 4, and in some cases, if you don't make any changes or whatever, as a small ball 5, you're gonna lean on him more than you would Haywood, just because you have this.
Well, I think it's a familiarity thing, and I think again with Haywood, and no disrespect to Haywood, but we do know what he is. I give him credit for that, because what he is more than we thought he would be.
All right.
But which again, particularly the shooting part of it, okay, which he's gotten much better than that. Keshad, when he came out, that was the issue. If he could make the spot up threes from the corner in particular, that changes the equation for him. We say that about a lot of guys. But when we talk about it like with Jaquez, it's not what I want Jaquez doing. Jaquez has to figure out a way to score on his attacks the way that he did as a rookie. With Johnson, to me, it's if he makes that shot, it's going to open up everything for him in terms of the other things that he provides. And I do think it's something they're going to lean into. Look, they gave him a standard last year for a reason. They've been struggling for roster spots. We know that. They didn't even have a roster spot open until they made the Powell trade. So they gave a roster spot to Keshad. They guaranteed him again, and they're not going to play him this year? I don't think so, especially with Haywood in the last year of his contract. I feel like Johnson's going to play. All right, on the other side, we'll talk about 2 guys who were drafted in the first round the past 2 seasons, how they've looked in Summer League so far, and where that goes as they head to Vegas. Before we do, I'll tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friend Lynette. Car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, all of that. She can help you with it, based in Lauderhill, Broward County, but also if you're in Dade, Palm Beach, she can help you as well. Aggressive Insurance Agency, the insurance agency that works for you. You can find her at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800. Again, it's Insurance by Lynette, 2 N's and 2 T's.com. All right, so let's pivot to the others. Let's start with Ware, actually. We'll finish with Jakucionis. Kel'el didn't play in the 3rd game in California, played the first 2. Did not jump off the screen. But I know for bigs it's different in Summer League, although I remember being in Orlando when they used to do Orlando Summer League, and I wish they still did that. It was a nice, easy drive. And I remember watching Andre Drummond in his 2nd season, and he came back as a 2nd-year player, and this was a player who was a first-round pick of Detroit, and just destroyed people, wiped them off the floor. And I think there's some expectation that if you have a big who's a top 15 guy who was borderline first-team all-rookie, that you're going to see, like, he just dominates. That didn't really happen, but I don't think he played badly. What do you think of what you've seen so far?
So I think when we talk about what exactly Miami's plan was for Kel'el going into Summer League, Eric Glass said they wanted to see leadership, and there were some other things that they wanted to see that he didn't really kind of, spill the beans on. But I think reasonably for some of us as fanalists, whatever, and some fans, you wanted to see Kel'el be dominant, and you want to see, for me specifically, I wanted to see the leadership part of Kel'el. Because I've said going into Summer League, especially him playing with Bam and without Bam, how could he organize the defense, right? And I'm not expecting a lot from a 21-year-old going into his 2nd year, but is there reasonable and steady progression as far as calling out what your defensive responsibilities should be, right? Especially as he's anchoring the defense and everything like that. And so, how is he doing that? How is he switching? How is his techniques? Is he boxing out? Are you seeing more of the technical stuff from him that you didn't see in the first season? And from that first game, he didn't look dominant, right, on both ends. He did look more technically sound as far as boxing out, having his hips a little bit lower than they were, playing with his length, using angles properly and everything like that on the defensive end. Even though the numbers didn't reflect it as far as like 20 rebounds or whatever, he finished the game with 14.7 rebounds. Brady talked about his jump shot not being as flat. So there were some things that you can pick out as far as like, okay, I can tell that you worked on that. The second day was very, very disappointing because all the things that you saw that were positives in the first day, you didn't see at all. It was like night and day in the second day. And it looked like those very things that people were very critical of him pre-draft, and some things you saw kind of poke the ugly head up during the season, where he just looked like he was going with the motion, right? And it was very, very disappointing because even though he's 21, and I always talk about this with, players of different sports, they may be very highly talented, but they are still young 20-year-olds. In a real world setting, you wouldn't have that much expectations of a young 20-year-old. But this is a little different. But for him, you wanted him to be the light of example, right? Now, when we talk about Pella and Keshad earlier, both of them are 24 and older or 23 and older, so they have a little bit more age and experience.
And Jaquez looked like that last year in Summer League in the second year too. So that tends to be the case there.
Yeah. But I think from what you saw, just to wrap all that up with a bow, I think what you saw from Kel'el is a mixed bag, right? I don't know. They set him out on Tuesday. I don't know if he's playing the next game or more games in Summer League. I would expect him to, just because of what he's already showed. And I'm sure he got a nice little text from Alonzo and UD and Bam on what they saw. So
I want to see him in Vegas now, Eternal. That's the thing. Like, I think now that he's taken I don't think this is just 2 games and out. I want to see him in Vegas. I think you play him a game or two, and I think you want to see a game where. Well, here's the other thing to consider too with the big, as fairness, and we're going to get to Jakucionis now. Okay, is that you're not bigs need guys who can get them the ball, and in this kind of setting, if you have a guy, and I think that's part of why they were leaning into maybe. The other what's his name? The other guard that they've been playing.
Kyra Lewis.
Thank you, Kyra Lewis. Somebody with a little bit more experience who can do that, and that does matter when you have a point guard who's struggling, and then you're kind of putting him in the corner. It's a little bit hard to kind of develop the connection between the two of them, and harder for a big. So I want to see Ware play a little bit more in the summer, and maybe get in a couple games. But let's get to the other guy that everybody wants to talk about, and I know Brady and Greg have done deep dives on this, but let's do 5 minutes on it just to get to it. Let me give you the numbers, okay? Because I know people are posting the numbers, and hopefully someday we'll look back at these numbers and laugh at them, and we might, because Trae Young's first game in Summer League, I was there, and it was awful.
Jalen Brunson's Summer League was awful. Like, there's a bunch of players playing.
Awful, okay? Porzingis, I covered his first Summer League game, and I wrote a column for Bleacher Report that I don't look back on fondly, that was so scathing that I got a call from his agent the next morning, okay? Because I said he got pushed over like a leaf. Again, Porzingis has had a pretty good NBA career, and I believe made an all-star team. So I think, again, we can't jump to too many conclusions, particularly with a 19-year-old. But here are the numbers, right? 3 games, 65 minutes, 1 of 15 from the floor, includes 0 of 11 from 3, 12 turnovers and 12 fouls. Now, again, I was at Michael Beasley's first Summer League game in Orlando, where it's actually Chalmers who jumped off the page at me because Beasley committed 12 fouls in 1 game. They allowed you to play through the fouls. This was on the little side court in the old Orlando building, and he committed 12 fouls, all of them on Sean Williams, not the one SHANWNE, but SEAN, who played for the Nets for a little while, who dominated him. Okay, and Michael Beasley, he's still dominating the big three. He had a pretty good NBA career, although not what people expected. So again, I downplay the numbers somewhat, but the numbers are atrocious. So, they're really bad. Okay, so I mean, let's just do it here because we're gonna do more episodes on it.
Right.
But your level of concern here, 1 through 10, with 10 being a full-fledged fire alarm that kicks me out of my building. Where is it? Because he's been like the worst player on the floor offensively, not defensively. I think defensively he's competed, but offensively through the first 3 games that he's played in,
I would say a 4. Some of this you could kind of see during his college games that the handle wasn't as tight. And so if you put better athletes, better defenders in front of him, you could see, and obviously more pro coaches that could take advantage of that, right? They could poke at that. And I think the biggest thing, which he's talked about, right? Like we can read the quote if you want to take the time while I'm talking to pull it up. It's in our host updates. But we can read the quote of his own introspective analysis of his play through these 3 games in the California Classics. He needs to work on his handles. It's not tight enough. He's not blazing on foot to blast past somebody, right, in a straight line off of 2 dribbles or whatever. He has to show more of that craftiness that we saw in his college game to get by guys, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, we knew what his jump shot was, right? We knew what it was before the forearm injury. We saw what it was afterwards. But like Adele has talked about on our platform and his, they're going to tweak his jump shot. They do. They've done it for Kel'el. They've done it for Pella. They've done it for Nico. They've done it for all of them, right? They're going to tweak the things and make it better. So I'm not really surprised by his shooting. I wasn't that big of a fan of his actual technique in shooting. The passing, we've seen glimpses of. We saw more glimpses of it in the last game. But he just looks, at times, he looks like he's pressing, right? He looks, he doesn't look like out of control, right? There's a difference of that. Right, when the guy just playing out of control, they don't know.
No, he looks tentative, and it looks like they knew he was going to be, and that's one of the reasons they didn't put the ball in his hands as much in the first 2 games. But if you read here's the quote. We'll just play off the quote and close it. I think I need to settle in more, play at my own pace, don't get sped up so much as I was in these 3 games. I didn't feel myself in those games, but I think that's normal. It's a process. I'm just happy to be here, be able to learn from coaches, from other guys by working out, and then so on. I here's where I am with it. I would not be especially concerned with it for the long term. I will say this though, for those who are going to start jumping on Spoelstra for not jamming him into the rotation at the very start of the season, there, after he was drafted, it was if he doesn't start game 1, that's not happening. Okay, he's a ways away from that. There's likely going to be some G League stints here. There's going to be some time in Sioux Falls. There's an Applebee's in Sioux Falls. I believe it is the #1 restaurant there. That's what Mike Miller, who grew up there, told me. He's going to get used to Applebee's. Okay. And those flights out to Sioux Falls. I just think that's where we're headed for the first half of the season. And it doesn't mean it's a done project because I remember Josh Richardson as a rookie, who was a much older rookie, a 2nd round pick, 40th overall. But Jay Rich, they sent him to Sioux Falls and he wasn't a natural point guard. We know that. They sent him there to run 500 pick and rolls a day, okay, and basically to learn how to do that kind of stuff. He came back up and he shot 51% from 3 in March and got a place in the rotation going into the playoffs on a team that made the 2nd round. I can see Jakucionis developing reasonably quickly. I don't think Eternal, and I'll let you finish, I don't think it's going to happen at the pro level in the calendar year 2025. I think this is a 2026 and on project. And I would just ask everybody Now that they've re-signed Davion, okay, who's gone through struggles himself, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
He had to go to two different places.
Two different places, and was graded the worst offensive player in the league in his second season. Okay, by the metrics. And we saw last year him be a competent offensive player for Miami, and obviously his other skills shown through. It's going to take some time. So I'm just telling Heat fans, I almost think this is good that they saw this, because I think it's going to temper it a little bit early in the season. And if he comes up and gives them something in the second half of the year, I think that's a positive. And I think there's enough trust in Adam Simon that people will say, okay, he's going to be good eventually. And they're like, oh, they busted the pick. I don't think Heat fans are going to go there in the first season. I just don't think we're going to see a ton of contribution at the top level yet. Is that fair?
No, I think based off of exactly everything you have seen, because you can only go off of the information that you have saw. I think everything you've seen so far is very reasonable for you and others of that to say that, right? Like, oh, he's going to be a project. This is probably going to be a red shirt year for him. They're going to have to drill a lot of things into him, out of him, all of that, right? Based off of what you've seen. We all know how humans are. If he goes and lights up Vegas.
Vegas. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. If he lights up Vegas, I'll have a different conversation, but I don't think he's going to light up Vegas. I don't.
I'm just saying, like, because it can change.
I get it, but I also I saw Emmanuel Mudiay light up Vegas right in front of me. Never became a great NBA player. I don't think it's necessarily correlation. You're playing with different players, but I will say this, okay? One of the better summer league teams I've seen the Heat put out, and this past year, last year, obviously they won the championship, but was the team that had Nunn and Hero as rookies playing with Duncan. And, Tyler looked NBA ready in that, and as did Nunn, by the way, who was an older rookie. Nunn was probably the best player on that team in the summer league, and then he came out of the gate like it as a rookie, and then we know what's happened since. Well, he's lighting up Europe, but I don't think he'd be lighting up the NBA again. So, but with Tyler, you saw he was more ready than Jakucionis is, but that shouldn't be a surprise. Tyler did the first half. First thing, he was a little older than Jakucionis, not a lot, I think, like a couple months. But the other thing is, like, Tyler, Kentucky leaned into him as a primary scorer in the second half of that season. And at Kentucky, I know Jakucionis was in Illinois, big school, whatever, but it ain't Kentucky. And Tyler had become kind of their standard bearer as that season went on, and it carried over. But he also was playing with a really good summer league team, playing with Nunn. He got really comfortable with him in the backcourt. That carried over. That's not what this is. I just think we got to wait and see. But I'll let you finish here.
To be very, very, very transparent, the talent of the summer league, because I'll never speak down on guys, the talent of this year's summer league versus last year's summer league, and I won't say the talent, I'll say the play, right? The play of this summer league versus last year. Last year's team was terrible their first game, and they weren't terrible again.
No, they weren't.
And I think a lot of it had to do with you had an older Josh Christopher, older Cole Swider, Isaiah Stevens came out a little older out of college, a little bit more polished, experienced, and all of that stuff. I would say this for Heat fans. The biggest thing you can take away from Jakucionis, right, is the thing that you were most concerned about from him out of the draft?
Defense.
The thing that you're not concerned about right now, defense.
Right.
So,
no, I'm with you on that. And if he defends, he'll get opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
But also, if he defends but he turns the ball over a lot, he's not.
Oh,
so
no.
So this is what this is about. You get a baseline of defense, okay? He starts the season making some trips to Sioux Falls.
All right.
And they put the ball in his hands and say, tighten the handle, but go be you and make plays. And then we see. But I think this has been instructive. Stop throwing him in the starting lineup from the start of the season. It ain't happening. 19-year-old rookies. Dude, unless you're 6'9" and drafted out of Michigan State to play for the Lakers, there ain't a lot of those, okay, who start from the very beginning, okay, and can see the floor. This guy ain't 6'8", and he ain't going to be magic. But I think he's got a chance to be a good player. It's going to take a little bit of time. And
I will say this quickly, very quickly.
Yes.
I think he is going to get the best sharpening of his life against the players that he's going to face, not only in this summer league, but in training camp.
Yeah, training camp and next summer league, because he's going to be there too. Eternal, appreciate it. Check out the sponsors. It's insurancebythenet.com. Prize Picks, use the code 5. My daughter is nudging me to go watch Squid Games with her, which makes me a really, really bad father. Have a good one.